So while we are on topic of your father, I think this is the right segue to parenting. That in your experience, what is parenting then?
So that's I mean, of course, there's being a parent biologically, which is very obvious, right? You
Mhm.
bring children into the world, you are their parent
Mhm.
now, right? But I do feel that there are many people who are parental figures,
Mm.
um, who take on that role, who feel, some kind of and I feel like there are people who want to be involved with a child's upbringing. You can be parental, or
Yes,
you can be maternal without being a mother, right?
yes, yes.
You can be paternal without being a father.
Mm.
And I think there are um, things you can do
Mm.
that are maternal, take on their activities or actions you can take on that are maternal or
Give some
paternal.
examples, please, if you would like.
Okay, so well, I just think about my nieces, right? So they, mashallah, they have wonderful parents. They have amazing parents. But, I don't have children of my own, but I feel like when I'm with them, there's their age between ages 5 and 11.
Hmm.
Well, I want them to be healthy. I want them to be happy. And I love to share, like, we do, they were just here this past weekend. So I turned my office into a crafts room and I
So you do
share what
participate and interact and all
absolutely, yes.
fully.
I
Okay.
share my interests with them, and
Mm.
like I learn from them and they share
Mm.
their, they think of me both as friend, aunt,
Mm. I was going to say, what feedback do you get from them? Yeah.
what feedback do I get from
Like
them?
what,
Well,
like they think you are an aunt and a friend, and what else? Like what do they
I think I'm their
critique?
playmate. I think some of them, I think when they're young, especially think I'm their playmate because I love to play
Mm.
with them. So
Okay, that's
I
good.
think for me, maybe they bring out my maternal instincts, but they also bring out my own childlike instincts too. So like when
Mm.
I'm with the
Mm.
5-year-old, I just love
You enjoy
like,
that. Yeah.
the curiosity of
Yes.
children is
Yes.
very
Yes.
contagious for me, I feel like. 'Cause I feel like parents can give so much to their children, but I think it's a two-way street, right? The
Mm.
children do give something to adults as well, right? So
Definitely. Yes.
I feel when I hang out with my nieces and nephew, I suddenly feel like Ambreen's the child comes alive too, So not
Mhm.
even just Ambreen, like my maternal instincts, but I feel like my 5-year-old self loves playing with my 5-year-old nephew.
Mm. That's very
And I
nice.
and I hope most parents, I hope, I know not all parents
Enjoy their
necessarily
children.
or become children with their children, right? Some
Yeah.
parents you hear are very strict, right? And
Yeah.
they have to be in a
Mm.
role that I'm the boss role. Um but I feel like it's fun. It's kind of fun to just kind of
So, would
be
you
in the moment.
recommend that parents should relax a little and not be
Oh,
so bossy and not telling all the time rather than listening and be with them and be,
yes.
uh, instead of telling? I mean, you have to tell to some extent, but you can tell without making it as if you are, just looking at them rather than, you know,
Yes.
uh,
I,
mutually having some communication.
it's a balance, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
of course the parent has a duty, I think,
Hmm.
to, protect their children,
True.
keep them safe. Believe me,
Hmm.
my mother had eyes in the back of her head. She was kind of strict in the sense that, she made sure that she always knew where I was at all times. And,
Right. Right.
parents
The
don't want
safety.
their
Yeah.
children to be endangered, and that's a
Definitely.
responsible parent, so you don't become irresponsible.
Hmm.
However, I think there's a lot to be gained by living in the moment,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm.
and just like and being patient. So I know my nieces and nephew when they come here, they know they can kind of make a mess, It's
It's
okay. It's
okay
okay.
to be that.
It's like as
Yeah.
long as no one gets hurt, there's
Yeah.
like, we get our hand, and I think that's what I love about art. You get your
Get
fingers
hands.
dirty, and it's like a safe place.
Yes.
And there's
Yes.
nothing really like wrong or right, but it's
True.
just,
True. True. No, I appreciate your take on that. Anything else you want to say before we move on to our next question?
it just lasts. I feel like childhood goes by in a blink of an eye, right? So,
Right. Oh, yeah. About the listening part. Do you listen to them intently? And have you noticed that your parents listen to you? Does that make a difference in a child's life?
yes,
Is that
I
an,
listen.
yeah,
I listen very intently, and I think it does make a difference because we all want to be heard at every age. And I think I feel a lot of people we will like those people who sometimes validate us and support us, right? How can you validate and support someone if you don't listen to them, if you don't hear what they want?
I
How
want you
can
to
you
say this again.
how can you
Look at the
validate
screen and say that because this
how
is
can
very
you
important.
validate and support someone if you don't hear them, if you don't listen to them,
True.
right? Whether it's your child, your mentee, your employee, like, how can you make them, you want your children to be the very best version of who they are, right? Who they're meant to be, right? Like God has given them some gifts that he may not have given you, right? That he may not have given anybody else. And you have to listen in order to, you know, recognize and understand what gifts they want to receive for themselves, who do they want to be for themselves, and then what can you do as a parent to cultivate that, right? You might have like a baby Mozart or Mehdi Hassan in your home, right? Or, and
Yeah.
but you have to be mindful.
I really appreciate you saying that because you just summed it up as a, what parents can be and should be, or adults or parental figures should be, because let them grow, because
Yes,
everybody comes, and once you understand that everybody is unique, then your children are also are individuals and they are unique. There is nobody like you and there's nobody like them. They are
right,
not you, so don't mold them into you.
right,
You be you, let them be who they are.
right. And it's amazing to me when I see these, like they're three different ages, right? One is 5, one's 8, one's 11.
Oh, wow.
But it's amazing to me how their personalities actually they start to become apparent very, very young ages, actually.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they don't, I feel like our personalities, they don't change that much.
Hmm.
So if I even think of my childhood friends,
Hmm.
um, there's something that we're born with. Um, and every person, like you said, is unique. Maybe if we don't listen and we're kind of always, if some people are always told who they should be, they will never get to bloom into that person that they were when they were 3 years old or 4 years old,
Yeah,
or
true,
which is a very, very beautiful
true.
um, human being.
Yep. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Very rich coming from somebody who doesn't have their own children yet.
I
So-
consider myself to be a child still, so that's why.
Yeah,
I'm still
that's good.
someone's child, right?
That's good. So how is your relationship with your understand that your father is no more there, right? And I'm sure you miss him. How is your relationship with your mother? She's alive, right?
Of course.
Yes. Okay. So just briefly before we move on to the next part.
Well, I mean, so ironically, my mother is a very artistic person. She's a
Hmm.
very creative person. And so, growing up, that's why I said it was surprising. I've become and maybe I became a business oriented person. Maybe, like I said, I always saw that in front of me. But actually, my mother was not financially savvy or business oriented at all. So she was 100% a housewife all her life.
Hmm.
So when my father passed away, um, I really I took on a role where I kind of had to go accelerate into becoming financially independent, I guess you would
Hmm.
say. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, my father would say, maybe but he passed away when I was an undergraduate. And so then
Oh.
suddenly
Mm.
I felt like I had to really take on a different role. Of course, there's a mother-daughter role, but
Mm-hmm.
then after my father's death, I got very involved with the family finances,
Mm.
in the best way that I could. So, giving
That's very
support in
good.
the way that I
Yeah.
could. Um, but, I feel that so many, I think, interests that I have come from my mother. Like, I think this love of architecture, the love of colors and art and
Mm.
clothing,
Mm.
and she actually went to St. Joseph's and studied political science. So she's very, very articulate when it comes to international affairs and politics. And so I feel like maybe that side of my
Mm.
brain,
Mm.
like I said, I majored in history and international affairs. I think,
Mm.
probably has a lot to do with my mother's interest. And she's
Yeah.
always been very like civically engaged, even having immigrated here to the States. Like she's so savvy about what's happening in the world and what's happening in the US and what's happening even in our local community, right? So she's
Mm.
quite
Mm.
uh you know active citizen, I should say,
Mm.
always votes and
That's
will
good.
call me up even if I moved to Maryland for graduate school, and she would be asking me, have you registered to vote? Like, and like, on top of it, very much
Mm.
on top of
Mm.
it that, you need to be on top,
Mm. That's very
just because you're
nice.
living somewhere else. I feel
Mhm.
like I feel like I have an influence from both of my parents
That's
in that
nice. Mm.
respect.
That's
Yes.
good. Good. So you have a good foundation, and
Yes.
that's very good. You are carrying it, and you will carry it on, inshallah, God willing. All right. What value does fasting have in your life?
So for me, it's